gorgeous out. Let's pop some ducks.
This is the UPDuck podcast, a blend of upland and waterfowl hunting. Tune in as your hosts, Tyler Meaden, Jeff Ludicky, Matt Jeske, chat about training dogs and share their bird hunting stories, tactics, and strategies.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the UPDuck podcast. No Jeff, no Matt, just me, Tyler, here for another down and dirty, quick hitting episode. We did this a couple weeks ago when we talked about the Farm Bill, and this week we're going to talk about the crane hunt or potential crane hunt that didn't quite make it through, get signed into law here. And to give us the scoop on what happened with that situation, we have George Ermert. He is a board member and policy chair for the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association, who were the main drivers behind pushing this bill forward. So, George, welcome to the UPDuck podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Tyler. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you as well. So, let's give some background here, right? The crane hunt, right? The bill to allow a crane hunt in Wisconsin, that started when, and then what happened? When did it actually fail?
So the actual, this whole thing started way back in the end of 2023. We came up with the idea to push a legislative council study committee on sandhill cranes. And that is when we kind of started working very diligently and getting our coalition together, which included Delta Waterfowl, Safari Club International, the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, to really push this forward. Got
it. And so you went through, there's a whole bunch of steps that you went through. I got to preview that because I went to the WWA annual meeting, and I got to see all the steps that it went through. And then where did it end? And then what happened? Give us a scoop on what happened.
So we went through, we did go through a lot of steps, and we went through almost the entire legislative process. And the end of February, the bill that would authorize a sandhill crane hunt in Wisconsin did pass the state assembly on a voice vote. That is the first time a sandhill crane hunt bill in Wisconsin has ever gotten a vote in a full legislative body in the state. And then, unfortunately, after that, you have to, if you remember your schoolhouse rocks, how does a bill becomes a law? It has to pass two houses. And it did not get a vote in the state Senate. So because of that, the bill then fails, didn't move forward anymore for the legislative session. And we will need to start again from scratch in 2027.
Okay. So it has to go through all of the same processes that it went through. And there's how many different committees did it go through before it got to the state assembly?
So it won't be quite the same. So, this last time we did have a what's called a legislative council study committee on sandhill cranes that really took a deep dive on this issue. And what happens is on even years, the legislature will form study committees on specific issues that they want to take a deep dive on. They chose sandhill cranes on one of those in 2024. That won't happen again because they've already taken the deep dive on this. They've already had the experts from both sides weigh in. We've got a record on that. There's a nice summary document that explains the pros and cons and what they did. But the steps that will still need to be taken is, we will need to find authors of the bill. We will need to go through the committee process again, have a public hearing. We will need to get a vote in committee, and then we will need to get it through. If that passes committee, we will need to get it through the full chambers of both the Assembly and the Senate before going to the governor.
Okay. So, right, the front piece of what you went through starting at the end of 2023 into 24, that piece is done, but you still have major amounts of work to do. Why?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, yes, there is a lot of work, but when we look back on this as to while it didn't pass the Senate, we did get very far. And this is the furthest this issue has ever gotten in the legislature. So this is the third time this has ever been introduced in Wisconsin, going back to, I think it was 2011 was the first time we saw it. And then we saw it again back in like 2019, I think was the last time, right around there, 2019, 2020-ish. We saw it again. Both of those times, the bill didn't even advance to the floor. And both of those times, this is when Republicans had significant control in both houses, large majorities, but it didn't go anywhere. This was never a partisan issue. It was a lack of education issue. People just didn't know what they didn't know. So that is what our coalition really focused on, was educating lawmakers to explain, how the science works on this, and that the science says, yes, you can have a responsible sandhill crane hunt in Wisconsin. And the results prove themselves. We were able to get a vote on this in the state assembly, a voice vote, first time ever. Pretty amazing. This thing passed both committees, without question. So we feel very good about where we are starting from. Yes, the legislative process is long and arduous, but it's government. Some things take time.
Okay, got it. And remind us, what is the science that supports the sandhill crane hunt in the state of Wisconsin? Because there's other states that, right, this is going to become a topic of consideration too.
So, right now, we are looking to do a responsible sandhill crane hunt in the state of Wisconsin, but we're not the only ones. There are 13 other states and provinces in North America that already hunt the sandhill crane, including several here in the eastern population of the sandhill crane, which is where we are. The United States Fish and Wildlife Service, who is the ultimate, deciders, the decision makers on how the sandhill crane is managed, they have said that when the population of the eastern population of sandhill cranes is between 30 and 60,000 birds, you can have a hunt. Well, we are now well north of 100,000 birds for the eastern population of sandhill cranes. And that population is growing every year. So, these birds are already being hunted. You can have a responsible hunt. Right now in Wisconsin, there's 1,400 sandhill cranes killed every year by depredation tags issued by the United States Department of Agriculture and the Fish and Wildlife Service. And when those birds are killed by farmers, they must be left to rot in the field and not utilized. You cannot harvest them. So these birds are already being killed, yet the population is still growing. The science is on our side on this. It's just we have some people that believe that because the sandhill crane is such an iconic bird, because it is such a beautiful bird, and because it is such a conservation success story, that gosh, they once were at the brink of extinction. Why should we bring a hunt? Well, there have been many population of things that were at this point. But this is exactly why we need to do this, because many of those populations were brought back from extinction because of hunting. It is because of the efforts of hunters, because of the time and resources we put into conservation, that these populations were able to rebound. There is no better conservationist in this country than a hunter, angler, or trapper. I think we all know that.
Yep. Yeah, and the one that comes to mind is the turkey, since it's turkey season right here, right now, right? Yeah. On the verge of extinction, and it is a massive success story. There are turkeys everywhere in the state of Wisconsin.
I live in the city of Madison, and I have turkeys in my neighborhood.
Yep. Okay. All right. So the science says yes, right? We made it through the assembly last time. We're starting over, but we have momentum. We have information. A lot of education's been done. Where do we go from here? Like, what happens next?
What happens next? That's a great question. So, we are going to have to see what, this is politics. So we do have to see what the, November elections bring to determine kind of our best course of action. But what we are focused on right now is between the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association and our coalition partners, again, Delta Waterfowl, Safari Club International, Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. We're all going to be educating over the summer. That is the point of this, because no matter what happens with the November elections, we do know there's going to be changes. So there's always people that retire and new people come in, and we need to continue to educate those people. So I think for your listeners out there, one way they can help is to make sure they brush up on their facts, get their talking points down. And they can find that very easily on the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association website, wisducks.org. If you go to our menu, you click on the advocacy tab, and we have a nice section all about the Sandhill Crane Hunt. And that will arm you with all of the talking points and background information you need about why we should have a responsible Sandhill Crane Hunt in Wisconsin.
That's perfect. So I was going to ask you, my next question was going to be, hey, what can our listeners do? What can I do? And then I was going to ask you to, plug some information or some links of where people can go for more information. You just did that without me even asking, without me even prompting. So you're a natural at this, George. Now, we've covered, we've hit this thing, right, top to bottom here. What have we missed? Before we hit the stop record button, what have we missed, George? What else should I know?
I think the one thing for your listeners to understand that for people that don't work in policy and don't understand, like, geez, well, this got killed again. This is the third time this issue has come up, and it is the third time that the issue has not been signed into law. That's not a bad thing. Every time this is done, it keeps getting a little bit further up that mountain because, there is significant opposition to this. That is what people have to remember. Yes, we have science and facts on our side, but we have significant opposition. And there are a lot of people that are decision makers at the state capitol in Madison that don't hunt, that aren't sports people, that aren't doing the things that we like to do. So it takes time for us to educate them to see our point of view. But even though it didn't happen, the fact that we made so much progress the last 2 years puts us in a significantly better position to move this forward. I do work in politics professionally, and I can tell you that it takes, for difficult issues, it can take a long time. There's been issues I've worked on that took 6 years to get passed and signed into law. But you keep plugging at it, and little by little, you move it forward. But that is why, the efforts of WWA and our partners and our membership make a difference. The phone calls, the knocks on the door, that is what really helps propel this thing at the end of the day, because they hear about it from our members.
Perfect. I think that's a great way to end this. It's a nice bow on top here. George, appreciate you hopping on here. I know we pulled this together last minute. Love all the information you provided here. And, as a Wisconsin resident, I'm hopeful that we can continue to push this thing forward again, starting in 2027. We'll see where we land. And then, this is going to come up in other states. So, if we can push it through, hopefully other states can follow, the similar model.
And it is already being discussed. And it's being discussed in other states already. Michigan is talking about it right now. Ontario, up in Canada. So, this is a thing.
Yes, exactly. And it's going to continue to be a thing. Maybe Wisconsin can be a model for some of these other states that are also considering it now. So
yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, fingers and toes crossed. George, thank you again. And we will catch up again soon.
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it, man.